And I'd like to call this meeting of the West Dallas West Milwaukee School Board to order. Sarah, would you call the roll?
Mr. Verbos,
Present.
Ms. Steele,
Here.
Mr. Lee,
Here.
Mr. Becker,
Here.
Ms. Kaiser,
Here.
Ms. Carr,
Here.
Ms. Lee,
Here.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
President Burns.
Present. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Tonight, we have our athletic strategy plan workshop. And so I think we can get going right on that. And we'll just turn it over to you and the crew. Unless
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
it's not
I'm
noticed
just sitting
that you're
here. I'm
talking.
just sitting here. It's okay. So I wanted to just do an opening very quickly, thanking the athletic directors for being here as well. Shelley, the work that you've done over the past 4 months, we've worked as a team to sort of develop what I would say is the culture of our district as far as athletics are concerned. So hopefully tonight, what you will hear are some consistencies within that culture that we're trying to build and what we plan to build upon following this. So I'm going to now that I'm done, turn it over to Shelley, who's going to really lead us into the first part, which we'll talk about the culture of the district and our athletics. And then each one of the athletic directors will talk about how that translates at their schools and how everything is anchored inside of the strategic plan for athletics.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I know myself and Katie and Trevor are excited to be here and share with the board work that we've done. Want to just take a little bit of a step back to kind of why are we here or how did we get here? Last school year, we did a lot of work and finalized our district athletic strategic plan. And that remains our anchor. But then we have the threads that are out at Nathan Hale creating their own culture and West Dallas Central. So you're going to hear a lot, but hopefully you'll hear the themes and all the connections as it all in its own ways will tie back to our district athletic strategic plan. So tonight, our presentation overview, I'm going to kick us off like Dr. Robinson said and talk about, we did our first ever athletic program student athlete and parent survey and share out some of the data from that. Then from there, I'm going to turn it over to Katie and Trevor, who will talk about the goals and culture that they're looking to build at each of their schools. So kind of to just level set us, our vision for athletics district-wide is to be the preferred choice when people want to choose what district, what school, where am I going, and athletics is important to them. We want to be that choice. And we're going to do that by creating a culture that builds and cultivates character, community, pride, and a competitive mindset. And you kind of see, it doesn't say anything really about wins and losses. We're working on that mindset of what does it mean? What does it look like? What does it sound like to be an athlete and to be part of an athletic team and an athletic program? And we're going to do that through our objectives that we have shared previously: engagement, connectivity, and facilities. Some of the accomplishments to date. So back when the board, we shared our strategic plan and we got the thumbs up, let's move and go forward. We went right to work on a number of different things at both of our high schools and our intermediate schools. We have new shared cardio and strength equipment that's also there as part of our employee wellness program. And the feedback has been extremely positive at all four of those schools, and equipment is getting used. We've hired staff for regular hours in operation, right? So you can't just have the equipment in a space. It's got to be there and available to use. And you'll see a connection there later on when I talk about survey results and why that is really important for our student athletes. We have updated the forms and processes for our crowdfunding initiatives and overnight trips, not WIA related, but if primarily like dance or cheer, they'll go to camps and clinics, what that process looks like for them to get approval for those. We have, and anything that's on here highlighted, those are all links that you can go in and take a look at it. We created a preseason facilities checklist. So far before the fall season started, Katie and Trevor were out there, turning lights on scoreboards, putting up nets for volleyball, checking things out, making sure everything worked. And if there were any issues, identifying them early on so we could get them taken care of. And they will do that each season. And then that also is a tool for us to kind of track and monitor from season to season, year to year. We've created a partnership with School Picks and Sports Picks, and that has given us access to a humongous library, and you're going to see a lot of them in tonight's slideshow, photos of our student athletes that we didn't formally have access to. And I know when they're at athletic events, they try, but they're also running in a million different directions, or you try to encourage some kids to take some good quality photos. And I don't know, maybe you got half a not blurred shot or whatever, but now we really have really good access to some quality photos. The end of the year athletic program survey, which I'll share some results out tonight. And that was for parents and student athletes. Then we've created together collaboratively an end of season survey that they'll administer with the student athletes. And that goes at the end of each season and to every sport. We have a head coach job description, and tied to that is the head coach evaluation tool. We held in collaboration with Dr. Robinson, the first ever in all my years being here. Both of our ADs, I know every season do meetings with their coaches. That I'll just say the energy in that room when they got there and when they left. We held a district-wide coaches meeting, all seasons, all levels, all coaches, to just really talk about the strategic plan and the direction we're going as a district with athletics. We have an updated website. That's something we've been working on, sort of that one-stop shop. I'm interested in athletics. You go to the page. Is it high school? Is it intermediate? Juniors rec? Click the button and it takes you there. It's still a work in progress, but it's getting us in the right direction. And then we've created an athletics operations manual for our ADs. And we've had all these tools, all these things. Now it's in one location for them. And for both of them, shared document where we're keeping all the resources that they would need. Kind of on the horizon for us, next is similar to our portrait of a graduate. We want to create a portrait of an athlete. What does that look like for our student athletes here in the district? And we've already kind of started just brainstorming, when it comes to core strength and unlimited potential for a graduate. What does that look like for an athlete? Athleticism, talking about that mindset again, working together and thriving together. How does that look like on a team? Teamwork, culture. So this is not done yet. That's not a final product, but that's one of the things we're going to be working on this school year. And you're going to hear when they do their presentations, like the how, who are we getting involved? How are we getting them involved? And then how does that connect again back to those three core areas of engagement, connection, and our facilities? So we worked with School Perceptions. That's the same organization and company that the district works with on, the kind of family and employee engagement surveys to help us administer. And this was not new to them, which was great to hear. They do this all across the state, administer surveys regarding athletics. I think what was maybe a little bit new to them was how involved we as a team wanted to be in shaping the questions. And we formatted it so the questions are aligned specifically also with the head coach job description. Now, this is not a survey of the head coach, but there's a lot of things that are intertwined and connected. So the categories and the questions we asked are the same categories you will see on a head coach job description and the head coach evaluation. But this one speaks to the overall program of which the coaches and the ADs are obviously an intricate part of. So there was questions about program operations, administration, department leadership, relationships, and communications. And I guess maybe at a first glance, you'd go like, oh, that's the only responses. According to School Perceptions, we got a great response. They were really actually pretty impressed with the number of responses that we received and the return rate on the survey. So that was happy to hear. For a first time, this is really going to help us create that baseline. And with my competitive mindset, you're gonna know that I'm gonna want to see more numbers and then next time we report back. But also pretty evenly split between the two schools, and pretty exciting to see more students than parents. So this first section, I'm going to talk about what the, how school perceptions grouped it together. This percentages here were the number of either students or parents that agreed or strongly agreed. So they agreed with the statement that was made. And you will see our students and our parents district-wide, a lot of similarities, right? They agree that the process for forms, rules, expectations are clear and they understand them. Our events and our facilities, and the environments we provide are safe. And the same, there on the end facilities. Now, the degree to which they agreed, parents tended to agree less, I guess, or at a lower rate. But overall, it was, I thought, very interesting to see that in terms of our strengths, our students and our parents are pretty aligned, district-wide. District-wide, areas for improvement. Here talks a lot about that access for conditioning in season and out of season, which I tied back to earlier, the access to our cardio and strength rooms. The opportunities to celebrate and recognize, I thought was interesting coming from our parents. But I know that's something already we've seen an increase, and Trevor will speak to that. I know specifically for Hale later on, just sharing via social media and all the things going on. And this, and you'll notice as I move through the last one that they agreed the least on, partnerships with local youth organizations, businesses, alumni, is an area of improvement for us, not only as a district, but individually as our schools too. And not shocking, because that is an area we already identified as a district in our strategic plan. So now this is just our Hale student athletes and parents. Again, a little bit of variation, but thematically, you'll see the things that stand out. How to register, fundraisers, kind of those organizational things we do good at, and safety. Our facilities are safe, our events are safe, and we're providing those safe environments, which I think speaks very highly of our athletic programs. And it's good to see, like, safety should be our number one priority. So knowing that when we say we're making that our number one priority, our parents and our student athletes are seeing that and agreeing as well. Areas for improvement, student athletes, that access again, which was evident in the district-wide access for athletes to condition in season and out of season, is an area for improvement. Expectations. And this was interesting because when we had our strategic planning meetings, coaches shared that same thing, that there's not consistent expectations for our student athletes from sport to sport. So that's something we'll be working not only with our student athletes, but also our coaches on. What does that mean? What does that look like? What are we asking for? Is that like, hey, if you miss practice over here, you can still play, but if you miss practice over here, you can't. Or, if you don't show up with your uniform over here, no worries, we'll get you one. But over here, it's like, what does that mean and what does that look like? And then again, consistent with district-wide, an area for improvement that both our Hale student athletes and parents felt that we can improve upon is those partnerships. For our central student athletes and parents, again, kind of the same themes coming through overall. The processes of how do I register? What forms do I need? What are the rules? Where do I register? You'll see both for student athletes and the parents there. Again, to a little bit different degree, but those came through as in their top three of agreeing we're doing well in. And there again, safety also. our events, our facilities. Areas for improvement, access. So again, that'll be something we know, as a team, we got to look at more. And what does that look like? What are they looking for? And we've already, started having some of those conversations with our athletic trainers, and Aurora that provides the athletic training services. And not only the training part of it, the nutrition part of it, and how can we, utilize them more, to help our student athletes in that area. Again, the partnerships. And then on the central side, parents are looking for some growth in ways to celebrate and recognize our team accomplishments and our student athletes, whether that's in banquets, social media, what does that look like for them? And then, student athletes are hoping that will improve a little bit in the game day operations. So as a team, we'll take this information as a district and then individually as a school and develop some plans moving forward. But I think you're going to see they're already out ahead of us on that, in terms of creating their culture and their goals at their individual schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Trevor.
All right. Hello, everybody. How we doing? All right. I get a little hammy when I get a microphone in front of me, so watch out. All right. So at Hale, we're gonna focus on that culture, and the biggest thing is my first goal here is in student leadership development. I believe it's important for students to take ownership in their own development. By October 1st, we want to establish a student athletic leadership team, which is also known as SALT. This is something the WIAA also does. We're going to have at least 2 representatives from each sport in this committee. What they're going to do is a lot of things, but a few of the things that I really am looking for is I want them to plan their own school-wide service projects. This is not something that we already do, but something that they want to go on their own, whether it's going to a food bank during the holidays or some kind of drive, whatever it is. I want them to develop something that they're passionate about and they would like to do so they can take ownership in that. The other thing is developing a do's and don'ts in the student section. What chants are appropriate, what chants are not appropriate. Obviously, the fun little things we do, but 1, 2, 3, 4, stuff like that. But if you're calling out student names or you're calling out numbers, just teaching them that that's not appropriate. And I want to work with Katie as well to make sure that both of our student sections are kind of on the same page with that. The other thing is at home games, have specific themes for every single home game that we do. We're doing that right now with football games. We've had a USA night. The other day we had a frat night. We had a blackout, all those little fun things. I personally love doing a silent night right before Christmas where kids come and dress up in holiday attire and then they don't say a word until we make our first basket, and then they can cheer and do stuff like that. But that's all about culture, making it fun for the kids. I want to provide student feedback from the athletes. What's going well? What's not going well? How can we improve? What's it going to take? The next steps is by next year, what I would like to do is have a Nathan Hale student apply and or be on the WIAA Student Leadership Board. So they have that, they pick the kids, they apply, and then they interview with the WIAA, and then they make governance around the whole entire state, which is really cool. Second SMART goal is coaching development. By the second week, I want all coaches to have 100% of them, all head coaches and assistant coaches, complete their WIAA required training. It's a video, kind of goes over all the rules of their sports. It's very important. This is something when I looked at when I first got here that only about 60% of our coaches were doing. I want 100% compliance, and I've really hit this hard with our coaches, and I check to make sure that they do it. Also, I want to do 3 in-house professional development sessions. And this is not just me, but maybe some other people coming in and doing something. But one of the biggest things is the weight training program, and we're focusing on that big time this year. And I want to do little clinics for our coaches, whether it's ran by me or one of my coaches, just safety in the weight room, proper technique and lifts. And me and a bunch of my coaches, we're all going to get together and we're going to develop a program over the school year. So we're all the teams are doing on the same page, doing the same thing. Next steps in this is getting a speaker outside. I know a few people that I'd like to invite in to talk to the coaches about leadership. And as I said, design testing protocols with all coaches and hold testing days. I've already talked to a couple of the coaches, and what that would look like is in between each sport season. So between fall and winter, between winter and spring, and between spring and summer, all the kids would come in and test on the bench, the squat, the shuttle run. We all sit down and all the kids would do that. Now, I'm assuming the first time we do it, we might get 40 kids in, but as we grow, we want all the programs to come in and be able to do this and have the coaches know what they're doing. Social media and communication, that's my next SMART goal by September 1st. Hey, that already came and passed. Enhance the school's official social media page with a consistent strategy of posting at least 3 times per week. I have been doing this over the last month. I don't know if you've seen the Nathan Hale website, but we have athletes of the week in all the sports. We have had some game videos that I've posted of game highlights and stuff like that. Some people in this room may have actually commented on them and said, hey, that's pretty cool, which I liked. And then again, the team service projects. If we do anything like that, I want that on social media so the community can see what we're doing. I am also creating a bi-weekly newsletter called the Husky Howl. I don't know if you can click on that. This was also attached to Mr. Lesser's newsletter that went out. It's basically a bi-weekly breakdown of what happened in athletics over those last 2 weeks. It has all the athletes of the weeks and their kind of highlights, all the things that's happening in all the sports. So it's cross country. Right now it's obviously fall, so cross country and all those other sports that we do. So a lot of the teachers have commented on that and said that was a really good thing that we've done. Next steps for this, obviously, is we want to look at the data. And I can tell you right now, our views on Facebook have gone up 635%. Our interactions have gone up 620%, and our follows have gone up 450%. That just means that it's getting out the community and more of the community are seeing it. Next one, my next goal is student athletic participation. Last year we had 468 athletes. That's 43% of our student population that are in sports. By the end of the school year, we want to increase student athlete participation by 15%. How are we going to do this? Well, we're going to have coaches come into the cafeteria, talk to kids, have a night where anytime we have an open house or something like that, have tables set up so they can talk to the coaches. The biggest thing with me is hiring quality coaches who attract student athletes and make the sporting event a positive experience. We are in the process of hiring a couple of coaches right now, and I just want to make sure that every time we hire a coach, it's a quality person that kids can relate to and make their experience enjoyable. And the other thing is, collaborating with coaches and staff to identify and encourage new participants. Over my career, this is how I've been able to attract coaches just by walking around the hallways. A few years ago, I had a basketball player. That's all she did is play basketball. I was the softball coach. I talked to her. I said, hey, I think it would be great if you came out for softball. Next thing you know, she's my starting shortstop, and she hit the winning home run for the district championship. So just walking around, talking to kids, getting them involved. To meet this goal, we need to add 70 new athletes this year. And the next step would be looking at participation data and to set another goal for the next year.
And we'll turn it over to Katie.
Sure. In the spring of last year, I sat down with Brian Summerfield, our principal, and we looked at the school-wide theory of action that they had created, and then kind of used that data that they were focusing on in their overall goal to create an athletics vision that was specific to Central Athletics. I think we know that, yes, as a district, we are trying to align on a lot of things. I think that, I'm taking notes as Trevor is talking about like things that are going to be super cool at Central too. But I also think it's important to recognize that we are two different schools. One of the things that we really saw that we needed improvement on just overall was just engagement in athletics. How do we get more people involved? How do we get more people who want to come to games, even if they're not playing? How do we get more staff involved? How do we get more parents at games? Things like that. That's what we're really looking for. So that kind of drove our athletics vision. From there, we created a mission for student athletes, right? I want them to feel included. I want them to know that everybody has an opportunity to be successful in athletics. Yes, we want to hold high standards. We want our student athletes to be well-rounded and, to really focus on, yes, academic achievement. How do we be good leaders and role models? But also recognizing that you don't have to be the captain of the varsity team in order to be recognized in a positive way. So how do we create an environment within the school that includes everyone who wants to be part of athletics? For the entire school, then we were kind of looking even further into how do we get more parents involved? How do we create opportunities for game nights, for, bringing in our youth groups for events, special events for games? How do we create more opportunities for our staff members to come to and stay for athletic events, even though we know that people have their own families and it's busy sometimes, but how do we kind of incentivize really people wanting to come and support Central Athletics? We then kind of tied that into the district strategic plan area of just engagement in general, right? We know as a district, we want our student athletes to stay in the district, to stay at the school. And I think that trying to, think about booster club, thinking about athletics incentives, thinking about student support at athletic events, like we can work together with all these different areas to then create an environment that people notice, like, hey, I want to be part of Central Athletics because that environment looks super fun. It is kind of a strange thing to measure. Like, how do you say, well, I want a bigger student section? Well, that's kind of hard sometimes. What I did do is last spring, I sent out a survey to not our student athletes, just our students in general. And the questions were very, very simple. It was, did you attend an athletic event this year? If you did, how come? If you didn't, why not? And then do you have any ideas for how to get more kids to want to come, right? In general, it was very interesting. It was a lot of kids who say, they want the incentives and they want the hype to come from students and not people who are in their 30s, right? Like, I can definitely say, yes, I can advertise, yes, we should come to this game. Here's the fun student section. That sounds great. But they wanted to come from their friends. So a lot of what their responses were, oh, I came to that event because my friends were all going, and I came to that event because my friends were playing. So as long as you kind of create this, I don't know, cohesive unity sort of thing that can start at the top and really get people to want to come, I think that we'll see more just engagement and wanting to be part of the group in general. Okay, some ways that we do this. We are really trying to promote our student booster club passes. Steve Carr really likes to tell the students that it's really just a fiscally responsible decision that they need to be thinking about. It is so much cheaper to get a booster club pass as a student than it is to pay every single time you go to an athletic event. So we're trying to make things accessible for our students. We want them to be able to come, right? For our students and for our staff, we implemented super fan passes so that if you come to 10 events in the fall, your 10th event, you get a super cool prize, which is your choice of merch or something like that. I've actually already seen staff members really fighting to be the first true super fan, and they are showing up to events, they're showing up to away events, and they're texting me pictures of themselves can I get this kind of my super fan? I need to beat Miss Trainer because I gotta be a better super fan than her. So we're trying to get that included just to try and incentivize hey, yeah, thanks for coming to the games, and here's something that you can get. Really working on the increased promotion. The website was super fun to work on over the summer. Trying to keep up with the social media for sure. I have some student aides this year who are helping me with their by making kind of like Instagram posts and stuff. Cause again, like they are cuter than I am and they know what's trendy and whatnot. I've taken a step to collaborate with student council and our senior leaders. So because student council is so athletics focused, like the three main events that student council puts on during the year, it's homecoming, which is athletics, prom, which is not, but March Madness at Central, which is, right? That's all about like basketball season and things like that. So it made sense in our context to say, okay, well, we're going to work super closely together. Here's how we can tie in athletic events to all of these things that are already happening. Like we can get dance, we can get cheer, we can get boys basketball to do this thing, we can get girls basketball. How do we showcase this? How do we get booster club like at these events? But then furthermore, the senior leaders who are ultimately our like senior student council leadership team, they've been working with me and we've been working together to really plan out like, hey, what do you guys want to do for, I don't know, yes, homecoming theme, but also like, what do you want to do for our theme nights? How should we get this out to our kids? What do you guys think about this? What do you think about this? So then it kind of gives me some eyes like in the hallways to say, this is what would be fun. How do we kind of work on that together? And then I think just always with the youth connection. I talked to our football coach this weekend. He's called me and says, hey, I want to feed all the juniors. How can I get a bunch of food? We want to go to their practice and hang out and, talk to them and get them to come to stay in Central for football. So I think creating opportunities for those kinds of things to happen. And like we said too, I think there's always an opportunity for youth nights at games and, fun stuff, merch, more merch. Our goal too, I can hit on just a little bit further. When I took data at the end of the winter season last year, it was fall and winter, only 30% of Central athletics, or only 30% of our student body was involved in athletics, which I thought was kind of sad. So our goal is to overall by the end of the winter season to kind of increase that, hopefully to 40%. We know that spring brings a lot of athletes through track, which is amazing, but a lot of those athletes are multi-sport athletes. So we are trying to focus on fall and winter. How do you get most kids involved here? And then hopefully then by the spring, you can be like, oh, you already did all this. So you should just stick around for track because why not? So that's kind of where we're going. Questions?
Before we take questions, I'm hoping that you heard a lot of like things we didn't say like specifically, this ties to this strand of the strategic plan here, but everything that we're doing is in its own way tying back and connecting to all the things we had previously laid out. And right, some of those things are easy to quantify and some aren't, right? Some are a feel, some are the energy, some are the buzz you hear of like, how do I, where do I, can I get on that team? Those kind of things. Or yeah, we're going to the Central football game tonight. We don't even have kids in the district anymore. Those things, those are some of the things that are a little bit harder, I think, for us to quantify, but we will as a district be able to feel and know what we're doing is making a difference. Now, questions.
All right. Yes.
First, Katie, I want to thank you for being the first person to mention academics. My biggest concern is that there are student athletes. And so two things is I just want to make sure, I know we're talking about athletics as a whole, but for me, it's so important that they can continue their athletics at a college of their choice if that's something they want to do. And it's not because academics is a barrier to them. So I do want to make sure that we are putting that front and center as always. And my other thing I wanted to say was like, I would love to see both schools doing shout outs to teams that have high GPAs cumulatively. Be like, look, there's student athletes to celebrate that as well. Not just, oh, they beat XYZ this month, but also they're working hard in the classroom. I think you might get kids who are pushing themselves academically and not realize, oh, I could do sports and be academic and athletic. And, oh, that also helps my resume for college. You know what I mean? And I'm just wondering, do we know of any students who are have a barrier to athletics due to their grades not being up to par?
Like, do they exist?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually kind of interesting having done this in this role for a couple years now. Last spring, there was somebody who came to me and said, I just don't know if I can swing this. I might go to a different school. And when we in talking to them, it was actually, well, I think the student himself wasn't getting the services that he needed through academics. So then it was kind of like, well, I don't know if they would have come to the counselor. That was not a thing that they even knew that they had to do, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they saw that as a barrier. But then in talking to me, I was like, oh, there are so many things that we can do on the academic side. That should be the least of your concerns. Like, I can help facilitate at least talking to the right person, so that you can get what you need, but also like, we want you to play, right? Like, we want you to be here. But then recognizing too, that I think there is a balance between, I think athletics plays a really positive role for a lot of students to want to succeed academically. So if it really truly is, like, is it actually a barrier, or is it, I just don't want to? I think that's something that we try.
Or unaware of what
So-
resources there are to
Yeah.
support. Yeah.
I think a big thing too, me coming in, there was a lot of kids that didn't understand how the grade process worked. They thought it was just the last semester, not a cumulative GPA. So we did have a few students that weren't eligible for like football and stuff. I actually had them come into my office and I talked to them and explained to them, what's going on. Hey, I had academic issues when I was in high school. Let's not make it happen again. So as soon as you explain to them exactly how the process works, I believe I only had one kid that didn't make that, or what am I saying? It was the 11th. The 11th was when they became back eligible.
Okay.
So out of all the ones that were ineligible, only one out of all the athletes that we have were ineligible or not, are now eligible, I should say.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So yes.
And Kristen, to speak that part of the district's plan and goals of making their roles now a little more dual with the AP side of it is to embed our ADs as part of that school administrative team, right? So they're not taking a particular group of letters of students. They got all the athletes, and then working with the counselors, and not just grades, attendance.
Yep.
And I know we've already been on that, like some of our athletes, they might not be in a sport now, but already seeing some of those habits forming early on, and how do we have conversations with them so that doesn't become like, right? If you're late the first day or two of school, we don't want that becoming a thing. Like, we need you to be here, right? Because you're not going to do well in academics when you're not in your classroom.
Thank you.
Yes. Member Keller?
Mostly,
Yeah, thank you. I always forget that, that extra step. Mostly a couple comments. First of all, I'm glad to hear from both of you that you're utilizing social media a lot more. I think in the past, students, community didn't necessarily know what was going on with the sports. And I'd like to see that even, further a little bit more. Like, it would be nice if every sport maybe once a week has a weekly recap of how they did on the field. What the results were, any highlights, those types of things, because I think sometimes people just don't really know how that sport's going. So it's hard to build excitement when there's just not enough of that information out there. And again, focusing on the student athletes and some of those types of points as well. The other thing I'm really excited about is the coach's job description and coach's evaluation. I think that's going to be huge. I've seen, and this has been in the past, right? It's been a while since I've been kind of very visible to the sports, but I've seen situations where there wasn't necessarily equality on the team. And what I mean by that is certain players were treated differently and weren't held to the same standards. And I actually have seen kids leave programs because of that. And I think the evaluation and the job description and you two kind of leading the way will hopefully continue to move those things in the right direction. The thing I hate the most is seeing students leave because they feel like they're being treated differently and and they have to do more than maybe somebody who plays a little bit better because that skill level's there. So I'm happy to see these things kind of hold people accountable. Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
I think that there is a common thread between our district's strategic plan and this strategic plan. And I think it was well thought out, and I see those threads throughout. So kudos to that. I think the thing that intrigued me the most about it was the SALT program. We're starting that, where we have student athletes that are going to be part of community service. And I think that that's a wonderful thing. I think seeing athletes get out there as a team and do other things for the community is always a benefit. And I think just as I push a little bit and just give you a little bit of a push in the direction that where my mind goes, your point is well taken that, Central and Hale are very different, and you do have common threads, and you do have a lot that you're doing that are the same, but a lot that is different. So the two of you really need to communicate well. If that SALT program pilots this year and it's doing really well, and you've got those student athletes that are out there in the community, then maybe that's going to be offered at Central as well.
Yeah, he's putting the pressure on for sure.
Yeah,
I can't start.
I do. I think
Yeah.
because that goes back to the things that we see as a board, or the things that we hear sometimes are, how come Hale has that?
Mhm.
And Central doesn't, and we hear that a lot. And again, why wouldn't Central do it if it's successful, and so on and so forth? And so just keep that communication going between the two of you, because I do think that that is going to be a hidden gem.
Yep. And I just want to say, I think we work very well together. So
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause we talk a lot. So
Good.
I'll let him do it, and then if it
Yeah,
crashes and burns,
absolutely. Have him. He needs to pilot it, and then the following year you say, hey.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Mr. Becker.
Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate the work. This kind of dovetails off what Ms. Carr was saying. So the two of you were, it sounds good that like we're hearing a lot of collaboration. I do wonder about the connection from the middle school to the high school level. We spend a lot of time in that committee talking about the feeder programs and how that really needs to build the high school programs. But could you point to something in the strategic plan that points to that? And is there anything else that you could give us just on where that's headed?
Yeah, I mean, tonight we more focused on our high school, but as you guys know, Bobby Foreman from our department is our district's intermediate school athletic director. And so we have monthly athletic team meetings, we call them. So Bobby's there, and Katie and Trevor and myself. I know already in, I believe it's cheer and our dance. Our high school coaches have met with our intermediate school coaches, and they have planned collaborative practices. I think they have a couple performances that they're all doing together. We now have a direct connection from cross country at one of our schools to a high school program. We have another at one of the other intermediate schools for just the intermediate school sports. One of our high school coaches is also an intermediate school coach. So we're really, Bobby's getting them involved in the interviewing process. It used to be like, we'd look around in the school and go, hey, who can do it? Who's willing? Oh, you're the coach, right? Like we've gotten away from that process. They now actually have to fill out an interest form, and then depending on the amount of coaches, they interview. And it's not just with Bobby, he gets the high school coaches involved so that we are building those connections, and it is something we're continuing to work on. And it ties into sort of, we've talked before, like what are the expectations? Like what should an athlete know once they leave intermediate school and get to the high school? What are some of the things or words or actions or skills? What do we want them to know to help build that portrait of an athlete? So I don't know that we have those exact pieces all in place yet, but there's little pieces happening and things that are tied to our intermediate schools, our middle school sports, to the high school.
Yeah, we've definitely spent a lot of time talking about that. So
Yeah.
there are things that are coming. Yes.
I can hear it too, even in just my conversations with some of the coaches at the high school level. It is less of a conversation about, okay, I mean, and they're obviously going to talk about the high school season, right? Because that's, what they do. But it's a lot of like, oh, I got to get myself over to the middle school to get these kids playing, like, or I got to get, I got to talk to this person. I got to go buy some food. How do we get these kids? Let's do a shared practice. Like, and just a lot of ideas. I think they are starting to recognize like the overall vision of like, we want people involved. So where do you start? You can't wait till freshman year to get people involved. They're like, we got to get over there. I got to convince these people to play girls basketball. Kind of fun.
All right. Anyone else? Questions for? Yeah, go ahead.
So first of all, thank you. There's been a lot of work done. I can tell that the first or second slide where it said these are the things we've done so far. I know those are not small things. We didn't spend a lot of time on that slide, but there's a lot of time and effort that went into achieving those things. So I want to call that out because I think it's important to note this is not something that happened overnight, nor should it. And there's obviously more, places that we need to go, but that's getting this good foundation is what's going to allow us to be able to move forward with purpose. I have a question because I don't know the answer to it. Do staff members have to pay to come to athletic events? No, so they can come with their
Student ID or
just
staff
their
ID.
staff ID.
Student ID. Staff ID. Yes.
What about retirees?
Oh, I can speak to that. We have the, I think it's called our Be Our Friend Pass, or I'm trying to remember, Be Our Guest. That's what it is, our Be Our Guest Pass. So it is a pass that lets any school district retiree resident, and I suppose if a former school employee was retiring, wanted one too, and we would not give it to them, but it allows them to get into all home contests that are not like a WIA sanction. So it doesn't qualify for a regional or sectional, but a regular home event, it gets them in for free.
Okay.
So if they want one, I don't know anybody listening, we have them at the rec department. They just come, show their, show an ID and here's your pass.
Do we communicate that when people retire at all?
I don't know that we do it to district, but we have the retiree breakfast coming up in October. So I'll make a note of that's a great thing to share. Yeah, we do. We put it in our guide. It's on our website. If we get asked sometimes, or I'll even share if I know somebody and they're like, I know their grandparents live in the district. Do you know about this program? No. Well, let's get you a pass. So yeah, we can try to do a better job of sharing that.
I just think it would be a great idea because again, that whole community thing, and you have people who worked in the district for years, who might be like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but I don't want to, pay for it. Or, if they know like, hey, I just got to get this pass and I could come when I'm able to. I think that's just a great way to build that community and to keep the connection between our retirees in the district in another way. Whether or not they were involved in athletics when they were here, I think it's just a positive, for those who are interested in doing it. And again, maybe then they bring either their younger family members that might come and become interested in that, or their friends who maybe they know now in retirement that they could have come and support our student athletes. So I'm just trying to think of ways that we can increase that. And again, get more butts in seats, as they say, to be able to come and cheer on our teams. And that comes to like a bigger thing, which I know is not going to be answered necessarily only within athletics, but something that I think is, as a district, that we could do a better job of, and that is keeping track of our overall district alumni. I know a lot of other schools, they have a robust alumni program, and being able to reach out to alumni when they are trying to do fundraising things or are trying to increase ideas or acknowledgement about what's happening in our school district. And it's something that I think we don't have a real good handle on as a district, being able to keep contact information with alumni, having regular alumni meetings and things like that, because it's a huge pool of people, which could be, helped in from volunteers to actual cash to be able to help our district, and maybe not just athletics, but a lot of it could be helping athletics people who came here and performed here for 4 years and had a really great time, wanting to help give back to those who are happening now. So something that I think, I don't know if it's part of any strategic plan, but maybe as a district, something to consider about how we can start tracking those sorts of things and being able to keep in contact and having that contact with individuals who graduated from our schools. But overall, I think it's a great starting point. And I'm going to echo a lot of what the other board members have said here regarding like coaching evaluations and being able to increase our participation rates for our students and encouraging staff to come too, because sometimes when students see staff in, the audience and watching them, that brings a huge smile to their face, because then they see that, oh, wow, they came in to watch me participate. So I think that's great too. So thank you.
Other questions from the board? Anyone else? Okay. I do have a couple of questions. The student athlete leadership team. One of the things that strikes me on this one is it talks a lot about just the student athletes, but often the student athletes are out athleting while you have non-athletes in the stands, but it doesn't really talk about including those non-athletic components, because those are going to be a lot of the people that are going to be doing those themes. Those are going to be the people that are going to be participating and then deciding what they should and shouldn't say. They're not necessarily bound by the same guidelines as our student athletes. And so that might be good to bring them into that conversation as well. Just because then you're giving leadership to the whole group, and then you're also getting buy-in between both groups. So maybe it'll help with that support. Question that I had with the head coaching eval, who's evaluating the head coach? Okay, so because the head coach touches a lot of different groups, is there anyone else that should give feedback for that coach? Just as far as like how it's going and what's going on, because, looking at those different pieces, that could be their assistant coaches could give some feedback, the athletes, parents, because they touch so many different spaces.
Yeah, we do the surveys with our students too, that, that evaluate the coach, kind of like their over the season, like.
Yeah, so Trevor's referring to the student surveys following each season. And so the coaches, the head coaches is mandated to have these surveys completed 1 week after the close of season. These are not evaluative.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So it's just more of an input direction, and will help the athletic directors kind of focus on what the culture is like for the program. So that's the input that we're getting from actual students. The parents give input at the end of the year with the end of the year survey as well. But we didn't want parents to do it in between seasons. Just a lot of talking.
And the other thing we talked about is like our coaches are an employee group, and there's no other employee group that we have that we ask to evaluate staff, right? So there's a number of different checkpoints and pieces that they'll factor in. So we won't directly ask parents for, please, rate your coach, whatever. But they know, like, right, you either are talking to parents at events or you get emails or communications, those type of things they will keep, right, as part of that evaluation process. Or if they get feedback like, hey, coach is always changing practice times and we're not getting communicated. We're going to make a note of that. And that might be then a goal. So they'll have just the day-to-day contact. And then also, the end of the season student survey will be part of that process as well. And conversations with staff, teachers, principal, will all be factored into head coach evaluation.
I was going to say, we do walkthroughs just like teachers do in classrooms. We walk through practices and sit down for 15, 20 minutes and see what they're doing. And if there's something we like, we let them know. If there's something we don't like, we let them know. And then we give advice. And obviously we do talk to our administrators as well. So.
And then for Hale, we wanted to increase by 15% the participation. Is that 15% of the school, or is it just 15% of the sports population?
Of the student body,
The
yes.
student body,
So it'd be
okay.
70 extra kids this year.
Okay.
Yes.
And then are we, as we're hoping to develop that, looking into the costs that would come with those extra students and those extra bodies within those sports, and making sure that we have the facilities as well as the equipment to support that?
Well, I was going to say it. I think we already have the transportation. Let's say we add a JV girls basketball team, so we didn't have one last year. Extra 15 kids right there. Bus is already going to another school. I mean, the cost would be minimal. It'd be a couple of officials per game for our home games. Already have the uniforms for them. So, swim team, girls cross country. Again, we have 9 girls in the girls cross country team. So we already have a bus going to the meet. We had more girls go out for cross country. We're not really increasing the cost. It would just be if we actually probably added another level that was different than, like, if we added a JV2 girls basketball team, that might add on a little more cost if we get that big, but that'd be great.
46.
Yeah.
Yeah.
46 on a bus. Yeah.
Okay. The other part, and I missed it here, but are we doing assistant coach evals as well?
So what I do is I have my head coach evaluate the assistant coaches, and that has to be done before they meet with me. And then we all sit down together and evaluate through, and we go through those.
Okay. So they're like the same kind of form that the head coach has, or a different form, or what's the consistency of it?
I mean, right now, we don't have a formal process for the assistant coaches, because literally this year, we're rolling out both the job description and the eval for the head coaches, which actually has been very well received. At our final strategic plan meeting, and at the coaches meeting, they said, thank you. Thank you. I either never had an eval, or so we want to roll out the process with all of them first, before we ask them to do it with their, because I'll say, when you're evaluating somebody else, there is some learning that goes along with what does that process look like. And, or if we're all, varsity, JV, JV2, we have to have a system in which I can actually go see my the person I'm evaluating. Do I get to observe their practice? Do I get to observe them at a game? Or is it just for whatever time or that we don't really get to see each other much, because while they're playing, I'm with my team in the locker room, or we just got to work out some of those processes and conversations first.
Over the past few years, with just the general head coach evaluation that we are doing at Central, I would always give it to them before the season started and said, just a reminder, we're going to go through some of these things at the end of the year. But if you want to also use this for your assistant coaches as well, you're more than happy to, but I would not formally sit down with the assistant coaches. And what I have learned, I guess, just over time, is that a lot of the assistant coaches are brought onto the staff because they have good relationships with the head coaches. They work together as a team pretty well. So I don't often hire specific assistant coaches and then say, you guys have to get along, right? I mean, for sure, that's sometimes when it's needed, but and then we go through that process together. But that's kind of how I think they all work together.
That's very common throughout all school districts, is the athletic director hires the head coach, and then the head coach is responsible for bringing on the remainder of their staff to coach JV or JV2. I mean, they do help, and they post, and they'll help interview, but for the most part is that head coach's responsibility.
Okay.
So the only question and concern I've had over the years of all my kids playing sports is to what you said, Katie, and all three of you, head coaches typically bring on their assistant coaches, which I completely understand. My only concern with that, and I don't know what the perfect remedy would be, is that are they still able to be really objective while evaluating their own assistant coaches because a lot of them are good friends from high school. And I have no problem with that, but can they be objective? And how would we handle that? So we don't run into that. Well, they're my friend and that's good.
So that's the good thing is what I do is if they give me an evaluation, it's all tens. And I know it's not all tens. We'll talk about that. And, you know, sometimes they don't get along and sometimes they do move on from an assistant coach. So, or there was a situation that we had early in the season and that, you know, we kind of determined at the end of the year, they're not going to come back. So, yeah.
I think too, it becomes apparent pretty quickly, like even if you are friends, if the head coach is telling me here's kind of how they broke it up, this, you know, defensive coach, offensive coach, whatever, here's everything's split up in a certain way. And then they're coming to me saying, well, this person isn't on time. I don't know what to, you know, just stuff like that. I think you can see the cracks pretty quickly. Also when they do coach other levels, because it's not like, you know, you look at basketball, it has 3 levels, boys basketball. So yeah, maybe as a huge coaching staff, they all have good relationships together, but I can still see them as assistant coaches, head coaching their JV program. So you still get kind of a little different perspective. But yeah, I understand, like, yeah, you don't just want to be like, oh, like we're all super fun and great. Yeah. So it's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if they're not, your best friend isn't always the best coach.
Yeah.
So I just found out that.
No, I think that's helpful too, because we are like at every event. And then when we walk through practices too, I think we're always kind of looking for like, you know, looking for the cracks.
Yeah, go
Just to
ahead.
quickly add on to that, I've seen that with family members too. You're not going to be able to be very objective when the rest of your coaching staff is related to. I mean, you might be, but the obvious conflict of interest potentially is there.
Yeah.
Others? I have a couple more. Yeah, go ahead. No, I can wait. So have I. I'm fine. Feel free. If you ask what I haven't asked.
I actually don't have a question. I actually have a suggestion because I don't think it exists. I think what needs to happen district-wide is a schedule for uniform replacement.
Oh, yeah.
We have one.
We do? Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
We didn't put it on our list of accomplishments.
It works.
Yeah, so we have I don't want to use the wrong term, but annually there will be a list of sports that we will have a re-up list for those sports for uniforms. So that's
Good.
been done.
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's new this year, right?
Yes, and our goal is that so an athlete, at least once in their career with us, will be the recipient of that brand new set of uniforms. So yep, we already have, I'm working
Every
with
4
Aaron.
years. Yep.
Yep, within their 4 years, yeah. With work with Aaron, fund that and build that in.
If you see something out there that says we're raising money for uniform,
Yeah.
that means extra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to be clear with that. We're trying to get a hold of and string a hold of these crowdfunding fundraisers. They're getting new uniforms on a cycle.
Mhm.
What we understand though is a lot of times our sports, like I love them to death. Central basketball, they have like 4 or 5 different jerseys and
Mhm.
uniform sets. And so, you know, it's kind of hard to keep up because they're paying for their own out of their budgets or fundraising and sorts. So just letting you know, if you see that out there, it's not because we're not paying for it. We're on a cycle. They may just be a little anxious to get a new uniform.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any others? All right. And just a couple more. So is this supposed to be a district-wide strategic plan? Is that our goal of what this is going to be?
And we do have one. Now we're doing the work of it. And a lot of that work is happening individually at our schools, but yeah, we have the plan exists.
Because I guess I'd like to kind of echo Mr. Becker's comments of having that middle school component and not seeing that here today, and then seeing how that feeds in. But also we have a very unique, well, maybe not very unique, grouping here where we have our rec department too that can act as feeder departments because it is under the district guise. And so I think that there's a lot of feeder programs that could be dealt with there, and working with, as well as getting athletes to maybe do some coaching and things with some of that SALT piece. But also as I'm looking at these two different plans, they're very different. One has measurable goals, another one doesn't. And so, as we're looking at these as a district-wide piece, they should be kind of consistent. I mean, granted, you're going to have different populations and different needs at each of the different schools, but your end objective should still be similar, right? So if we're raising by 10% at Central, okay, is that sufficient? Is that consistent with raising by 15% at Hale?
Yeah.
You know, so those numbers and the timeline and the date, like I appreciate one, but I don't see one for the middle school at all. And then for the Central, it's not measurable. So like, where are we with our consistency if this is supposed to be a district-wide plan?
So we, like I said, we kind of have the framework of the strategic plan. And then as we referenced, Hale and Central look very different. So in some aspects before where Trevor's already got some good baseline participation data wants to increase, Central might really need to work on the engagement piece. We first need to get kids even just thinking about sports before we even think about how we're boosting and increasing participation numbers. And definitely, if hopefully we do this again, whether it's at the end of, we come back at the end of the school year or midway, more than happy to have Bobby on the, intermediate school side of things included. There, we don't necessarily have a lot of opportunity. He's more focused on like the connection piece, not necessarily the participation piece, because that has been fairly good. And in some cases, we're somewhat restricted. Like if we would add sixth grade basketball, we don't have anybody to play. That's just an example. So yeah, we would like to do it, but who or how would we even do that? But really creating and getting the high school more involved. So like a lot more, he's trying to work to schedule joint practices, whether if it's like for cross country, kids go to the high schools or the high schools come there. So his focus area really is more the connection and preparing those intermediate school kids for what does it look like or what should they know? And then working with the intermediate school, like I said, the coaching staff, it's no more like, hey, Katie, you're my friend, you want to coach with me? It's more like, no, these are our expectations. And when our kids get to the high school, these are the things we want them to be able to know or do.
And is that communicated down from the coaches that have been hired at the high school level, or is that just?
We're working on that. Yep. That's one thing. As we meet each month, talk about like, what's our next step? What's the next piece of this?
So this isn't quite our plan. This is our framework of where we're going, but we haven't gotten all of our nuts and bolts figured out.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think we're in our infancy period, and Katie and I mean, we just started working together, and I think the more we're hanging out together, the more we interact, the more you'll see this happen. And we want that to happen for both schools.
Just a comment. The whole idea of bringing them here today was to provide sort of a state of the athletic program at their schools. So everything has not been sort of polished a bit to make it in its finished form. Just also add junior programs. We haven't really said a lot about that tonight directly. I think we may have said it indirectly. The success of district athletics starts with our junior programs, strong programs. So we're really also trying to build that connection back and invest. Example of the junior kids coming on the football field, the little things like that go a long ways in building what we would say are the culture and longevity of a program. So just really try to work.
Appreciate that. All right.
I just wanted to comment that last year when it was Central versus Hale baseball, the West Allis youth sports baseball teams got to be on the field with the kids, and our high schoolers treated our kids like gold. And that our West Allis youth sports, our goal is to be a feeder program into the high schools and keep our athletes here, not on club teams that go out all over the state. So that was another connection that would be a really good one to keep.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, okay.
I feel like I should chip in here. No, I think that there's like a lot of really great stuff between the two plans that you both had. And I think that going with what President Burns was saying, if there was more of collaboration between the two. I understand that there's a huge difference in identity between the two high schools, but I think there is a large portion that overlaps between the two. And even to the extent of, like when you're talking about with Central, the challenges of getting more students engaged in these programs, maybe it could be something as simple as like incorporating some of those Hale students that are engaged to, communicate those benefits that they're seeing in their environment at Hale to be at Central and talking with those kids. I know that they're at different schools, but they're all in the same district and they're all kind of working toward the same goal. And I think that along with that, you're building like a bigger network between it. I mean, you want to be able to have your crosstown rivalry. That's part of what West Allis has always had. But I still think that, keeping it more cohesive is to the benefit of all the kids. And it makes it seem more appealing and beneficial to be a part of the program. And that goes back to like, I'm going back through the entire discussion here in my head. It goes back to, when you talk about education, quality of their scholastic ranking and how that plays into, their athletics and like the role of athletic directors in terms of like support for education or, for academics. All of that stuff sort of builds on top of each other and to really get the kids to understand the value in that way, like that more complex layered sort of format, I think is a big part of it. So I think that while all of these ideas are really, really great, to be able to weave together everything a little bit more and incorporate what both of you are doing, because it's completely commendable on both sides of that. I think that, you're on your way to doing something really spectacular, but it's got to be like consistent across the board. And then, as President Burns said as well, when we're talking about evaluations, I think that creating a standard for assistant coaches, using that same sort of format for evaluating coaches, I think is important. You want consistency in the way you evaluate performance. And so that if that means you create like a checklist of things that you're looking for in the way that they're interacting, the way they're communicating with students, the way that you're seeing them interact when you're auditing, for lack of a better term, you want to be able to see that consistency in performance from assistant coaches, all the way down, all the way to the top. So I think there's a lot there, and I think there's a lot of movement in the right direction. But I think that weaving it together a little bit more is the main thing that I think is going to make it work a whole lot better. All right, that's it.
All right. Any others before we move past this section here? Sure, go ahead.
Katie, when you did the survey with the students and were asking them about participation, were there any particular barriers that came up that you felt you as a school or the district as a whole would be able to help with?
I was pretty surprised because I was very much expecting students to say that they weren't able to come to events because it cost too much. I really thought that was going to be higher, and there was only 1 or 2 students who had said that. Most of the responses were about, I didn't know what was happening. My friends weren't going. I didn't want to go by myself, or so I didn't know how to get to this away game or something like that. But it was more of like the culture of the engagement piece seemed more of the barrier than like the logistics were.
Okay. So that's good to know. Because I think in the past that may not have been the case, maybe less financial, but more access, ability to either come back to school after the buses have left, or if you're in a sport, being able to get home after that practice is done. So if that's not the case anymore, that's great, because engagement is something that we can actively work to address.
Yeah. And I think that is something that I've noticed too. I look at winter sports when it's cold outside and you have, kids who are staying after for a certain event. I feel like we've tried to then work with them to say, okay, here's like from a safety perspective, here's what we need to have happen, but also we need you to do that. Like, how do we work together? Where can we put all these people? Instead of just saying like, I don't know, figure it out, come back, come back later. Hopefully you make it, right? Like that's not what we're trying to say. So I think there is a balance there, but it did, I think, always looking for things to be more efficient in terms of logistics, but the survey really came back with results that were very much more engagement oriented, which was interesting.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll just comment though quickly. I think as a superintendent, I struggle with trying to also remove barriers that may exist for students at Central due to distance getting over to the WAC. And so I've heard from parents, I hear from coaches. So we are really trying to examine how can we remove those barriers as a system, because those are system-wide barriers where they have certain hurdles that the kids at Hale don't necessarily have because everything's like right there at their campus. So we're constantly trying to figure that particular piece out.
And I will say there are things that happen at Central and that AHL students are actually in the same boat. They have the same, it's a two-way problem. There's more maybe that happens at the WAC just because of the facilities that are held there, but there are events that happen at Central and Hale students do have to get there kind of on their own. So I'm glad to hear that we're looking into ways that we can remove those barriers.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then thank you so much. It looks like the beginnings of a very excellent product here. I'm very excited. All right. And with that, that is the end of our workshop. And so I think what we're going to end up doing here is taking a recess. But before that, we're going to convene into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent G, to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning pending litigation that pertains to a boundary detachment petition. At this time, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Go ahead.
I would move into executive session.
Oh. Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Steele,
Yes.
Ms. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Verboss,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
President Burns.
Yes. All right, and with that, then we will take a 5-minute recess. If there is no objection, we will take a 5-minute recess while the boardroom is set up for closed session. There being no objection, we will recess for 5 minutes.